Good evening from Cardiff, where we've been following the second leg of the Network Q Rally of Great Britain. The two pretenders for the championship, Richard Burns and Marcus Grönholm, were both still in contention after the first full day's competition, which, if you need a reminder, unfolded like this. Richard Burns was in the wars almost as soon as he started. Cutting a corner to save time only had the reverse effect.
There, be flat right, Marcus is, and flat right, 40, easy left, go 60, K left, minus time, stone cut, and tight.
His plan to attack then became an exercise in damaged imitation, with the left rear suspension badly out of shape. Burns even found himself out of the top 20. Running repairs by the side of the road made it a morning to forget, but he recovered to end the day in 5th place. What made matters worse for Burns was the flying progress of the championship leader, Marcus Grönholm. He was soon leading the event. He could even afford to hit a fence and a stray sheep en route to a comfortable second at the overnight polls. It wasn't so straightforward for Carlos Sainz in the Ford Focus. He nearly got on a roll of the wrong kind. He was lucky to survive that big moment and escape on his way without serious damage. But he didn't seem to learn his lesson. He was almost tree clearing again. Little wonder he described the conditions as the toughest as he could remember.
2 left plus, tightened.
Colin Mcrae didn't take long to make his mark. He was in the groove in second, when he wasn't off admiring the countryside, that is. He saved his best till last, though. As darkness fell, he won the day's final 2 stages and eased himself into the lead. A warning sign to Richard Burns. The Scot was as keen on winning on home ground as England's championship contender. So Mcrae shaded those first 8 stages from the title leader, and Richard Burns hauled himself out of the doldrums to relaunch his challenge from 5th. Ari Vatanen, winner of this event in 1984, world champion in 1981, is here. Second day, longest stages. How do you approach them?
Well, in rallying there are no secrets. I mean, in the morning you fill up your tummy with plenty of forage. You start to go flat out, and then later you go even faster. So, I mean, you can make a mistake on a short stage, on a long stage, and every second counts. I mean, tactics, time of tactics, that's over.
But it is a balance, isn't it, between caution and risk?
Well, but I mean, since rallies are decided by a few seconds, I mean, simply you have to go every single corner as if it was your literally last corner, except for Marcus, who is playing for the championship. His position is different.
Okay, so 6 stages totaling 100 miles lay ahead of the competitors. The first started just before 8 o'clock, and Tiff Niddell and Mark James were watching.
This morning's first stage was a repeat of stage 4, the 16-miler through Ronda, which saw so many crews have problems yesterday. This morning's weather, if anything, was even worse. First into the stage was the rally leader, one of those who escaped Ronda's clutches yesterday morning. Colin Mcrae, though, was nearly 12 seconds slower today. The stage surface now much more rutted as a result of being used again. The Focus was the 3rd quickest, although Mcrae's lead was still over 18 seconds. Yesterday's stage winner, Marcus Grönholm, was 2nd quickest today, taking a second and a half off Mcrae. Marcus saying afterwards that he's now only driving at 95%. The Peugeot's brakes, however, suggested that figure may have been an underestimation. Easily the most spectacular victim yesterday, Carlos Sainz made it through Ronda unscathed this morning, but had no reason why he was only 7th quickest. Tommy Mäkinen's Mitsubishi Lancer was 4th fastest on the stage, a little over a second quicker than on his previous run, and the Finn was now ahead of Sainz on the leaderboard. But the biggest news from stage 9 was the fact that Richard Burns was quickest. Yesterday's run had been handicapped by his broken wheel hub, and this morning Burns was nearly 30 seconds faster, moving from 5th overall to 3rd in the process. The top 3 now read Mcrae, Grönholm, Burns. Didier Auriol was still in 6th place after the stage, although his performance was the only highlight as far as Seat were concerned. Tony Gardemeister was complaining of some kind of shock absorber problem, the Cordoba bouncing through the stage 11th quickest, but the team was down to 3 cars. Gwyndaf Evans retiring with clutch failure around 2/3 of the way through the stage. Evans and co-driver Howard Davis weren't the only crew to suffer. Tapio Laukkanen and Kai Lindström lost around half an hour after leaving the road, while Skoda's Armin Schwartz had to drive most of the 16 miles with faulty windscreen wipers, just what the German driver needed in the conditions.
Into right 3 to 4 open 80 Right 5 opens. 50 over crest, left 5 short minus. Finish, right 3 long over crest minus.
Ja, eine verreckte Scheiße! Schau dir den Mist an, du!
Any thoughts of a day of Burns' domination was soon dispelled when Colin Mcrae went fastest through the 20 miles of Riola. The Scot driving with all the flair and style that makes him so exciting to watch.
Left 100, turn 2 left plus, tightens. Don't cut. $70, 6 crest, into 6 right, 150.
Richard Burns was just 0.1 of a second slower than Mcrae, but he now needed to average 10 seconds faster per stage to overhaul his great rival.
70, right max 40, slight left and slight right, slight left and right 80, left max 20 flat left plus 80 braking, crest 20, slow K left. The K left minus definitely don't cut. And K left, 30 flat right. So flat right, 60 flat right minus.
The crowd was willing him every inch of the way, but he needed to go even faster. By contrast to the battling Brits, Marcus Grönholm looked to be cruising through the stage, but he was still third fastest, losing just 15 seconds, despite admitting he was afraid of this stage where he'd crashed out last year. Gilles Panizzi was back on the pace again in the daylight. The spectacular Frenchman was just a fifth of a second slower than Grönholm and moved into ninth, and reckoned he would have gone even faster if he hadn't overshot a junction and lost 5 seconds. The man 1 place ahead of Panizzi in 8th was now his teammate François Delacour, as the Silver Bullets packed out the top 10. Juha Kankinen was 5th fastest and moved back ahead of Delacour into 8th. While Subaru's young protege Petter Solberg continued his recovery to life 15th, having fallen from 1st to 78th with an off on stage 3. Carlos Sainz had his supporters in the forest as well, and despite being only 6th fastest, moved back up from 5th to 4th. The Spaniard, however, was unhappy with a Ford Focus that simply wasn't doing what he wanted it to do. The reason for Sainz's move up the order was an error from Tommy Mäkinen.
10, vasen nopea aukeaa, vasen nopea sisältä aukeaa. Ja vasen 4, huomio nyppy 5.
The off-road excursion cost him around half a minute and left his Mitsubishi bearing the scars. But if Mäkinen thought he had problems, Tony Gardemeister's morning went from bad to worse. He would lose nearly 2 minutes fixing the bonnet and completing a nerve-wracking run to the finish of the stage. It flew open again just before the end, and Gardemeister had to resort to fairly drastic measures to get it fixed for the run to service.
So, much better morning for Richard Burns than yesterday, up to 3rd from 5th overnight, and crucially onto the shoulder of Grönholm, with Colin Mcrae setting the pace. Peter Slater was on hand to greet the cars when they arrived at the Swansea service area.
After slip-sliding through the first 2 forest stages, Saturday's service area for the surviving crews was on an industrial estate just outside of Swansea. Event leader Colin Mcrae could report on a relatively trouble-free morning, whilst co-driver Nicky Grist knew what the important job was, finding bacon butties for the mechanics. They, in return, were preparing the car to face increasingly difficult conditions.
Yeah, worse than yesterday, for sure. The road's very, very slippy, quite difficult in places.
But are you happy with the times that you're doing?
Yeah, my time's, yeah, good, very happy.
And is it 100% this morning?
Just about in the last one, yeah.
Is that because it has to be?
No, but just because you just start off quick and see what everyone else is doing.
Richard Burns was driving his Subaru as fast as he dared. After the problems of yesterday morning, he was in determined mood.
Very, very difficult in some places. It always seems to be the downhill which is worse. You know, you're pulling quite at high speed, up to 100 mile an hour sometimes, and there's a lot of mud around, and well, you have to cope. You have to know when to brake, and it's not always so easy.
Determination was one thing, but however quickly Burns drove, he couldn't completely close the gap on Marcus Grönholm.
Yes, and even if Richard catch me, so it's not a problem for me. He can pass me. I try to go like this, and I keep the others behind me.
Marcus, okay, we're taking a little bit of time from, but not a huge amount. On the good side, you know, I'm taking a few risks and I'm pushing very hard, which means that Colin must be doing the same, and I know how close we are to spinning in a few places, and you know, we're on the limit.
Those slippery conditions were making life difficult for everyone. Tommy Mackinnon's Mitsubishi had come off second best in a battle with a Welsh tree, but that hadn't been the reigning world champion's only problem.
The throttle pedal sometimes stacking, and this last stage was not so nice. High speed, very high speed, sixth gear flat out, and when I lift throttle nothing happened, just pulling.
Pulling out altogether, Gwyndaf Evans. His rally ended prematurely yet again.
Unfortunately, the clutch went on the first stage this morning. Everything was feeling good this morning. I was feeling much better than yesterday, but it wasn't to be.
It seems destined, doesn't it? Now it's down here on your own backyard that you're not going to finish.
Yeah, I don't know what I've done wrong, but there we go.
Bad luck then for Gwyndaf, but next up for the rest, those surviving, was the longest stage of the day. It was through Resolven. Here's Mark James.
Stage 11 was always going to be crucial. At nearly 30 miles through Resolven Forest, it was the event's longest stage by far. Colin Mcrae and Nicky Grist were quickest for the second stage in a row. Yet the car's windscreen had steamed up at one point, so the pair felt they could have gone even faster. A suspension change and some new brakes were planned for the service area which followed the stage. Carlos Sainz and Lewis Moyer were 7th fastest, but had dropped a place to Mackinnon and lost 13 seconds to the man now behind them, Francois Delacour. Richard Burns and Robert Reid were 2nd fastest, just 1.2 seconds slower than Mcrae over the 28.8 miles. The duo were only too aware that catching the focus would be difficult, but exactly 11 seconds were now all that separated them from the Peugeot of Marcus Grönholm and Timo Rautiainen. The Finns reported their brakes going soft in the middle of the stage, but still set the 4th quickest time. Burns might be threatening their 2nd place on the leaderboard, but the Peugeot pair were happy enough. After all, 5th place was all they needed to take the championship. Francois Delacour was nearly 1.5 seconds faster on the stage than Grönholm. The Frenchman had now moved past both Kankkunen and Oriol into 6th place. This event is the last time in 4 years Tommy Mackinnon will have the number 1 on his door. The Finn wasn't letting that fact bother him though. Despite a slight off, he and Risto Männisen-Mäki were 5th quickest, and so had now snatched back 4th place from Carlos Sainz. Alistair Mcrae was 12th overall, but things were going from bad to worse. The Hyundai was losing oil, and there were concerns it wouldn't reach service. Co-driver David Senior having to stuff his T-shirt into a hole in the car's sump to try to stem the flow.
As you were at the top then, after stage 11, Mcrae from Grönholm from Burns, but you'll notice that Mcrae had increased his overall advantage and Burns had closed in on his main title rival. Peter Slater gauged the mood at the 2nd service at Swansea.
After the longest stage of the day, Richard Burns in this Subaru is still trying to fight his way through the pack. He has two problems in this network queue, the World Championship and the event itself. In the World Championship, he has to catch this man, Marcus Grönholm. He's making inroads, but is it going to be enough? And he has to try and win the event. And the man he has to stop to do that is the man driving this car, Colin Mcrae. The main contenders were able to discuss events at close quarters by Saturday lunchtime. All have their views on what's going to happen. We turn to a man who's won this event and co-driven for two world champions.
We've certainly got a 1 minute buffer on Richard. It seems that we're fighting with him, but we're neck and neck. So if that's the case, then it's going to be around about 40 seconds to a minute. I dare say that if we're holding that going into the last stage, we'll lose a little bit of time, but we'll just conserve that buffer.
But what if Marcus Grönholm goes out? Then do you let Richard Burns through so he can win the World Championship?
I don't think he'd do it for us. So at the end of the day, I think we'll stick it to our plan, and that's to win the event.
The Rally of Great Britain, though, has a habit of producing drama, even at the very last minute. All the top drivers know this.
At the moment, it seems that Marcus has quite a good chance, but you never know. You have to wait until tomorrow.
You will tell him it's never over till you reach the end of Margin.
Yes, but not everybody is so unlucky like me.
And it's that knowledge which keeps Richard Burns upbeat and gives his team hope.
Richard's really up for it. He's still pushing. I'm not sure if we can catch Colin, but we'll certainly put him under pressure. And then we're in the lap of the gods. You know, Marcus is doing a great job.
And whilst for some the battle is for the title or the win, others are simply finding it a challenge to push their car back for essential repairs. You had some problems this morning?
Yeah, no, just in the long stage there, about 18 k's in. It's hold the sump in the car, and it's just been slowly draining the oil out, so we've lost oil pressure. Basically, till the end of the stage there was no oil pressure at all. So we tried to jam it up and fill it with what fluids we were carrying in the car and got here, so hopefully the guys can put a new sump on it and the engine's not been damaged too badly.
And after service, there were 2 forest stages left before the return to Cardiff, and we can pick up the action with Tiff Niddell.
Richard Burns got back to the top of the timesheets with the fastest time through Riola, going just half a second slower than he had done on the first run through the 20-mile stage earlier in the day. It was enough to close within 3 seconds of target number 1, Marcus Grönholm, but catching Mcrae might not be so easy. Petter Solberg was a surprising second fastest, just 2 seconds slower, and moved up to 13th, determined to get a top 10 finish, while Juha Kankinen completed a Subaru 123 to move himself back up to 5th. So, where was rally leader Colin Mcrae?
Into right and clear 6 left over crest and 4 right minus cut. 150, 6 left minus tightened line, into 4 right minus cut, hole outside. And 6 left, opens long.
The answer was in the trees. Having rolled back onto their wheels, Nicky Grist was soon reading the pace notes like nothing had happened.
And 6 left, opens long.
But 2 miles up the road, they were out with a cooked engine. The crew were unharmed, which is more than could be said for the Ford Focus, but Nicky Grist decided it was perhaps his turn to take the driving seat. Peugeot very nearly filled the other half of the top 6 times in Riola, with new rally leader Grönholm going 4th fastest. Francois Delacour was 5th, now much happier than he had been yesterday. While Gilles Panizzi was 7th quickest. The man spoiling Peugeot's symmetry was Toyota privateer Marco Martin, who, having been as high as 5th overall yesterday, was now back to 9th. Tommy Mackinnon was off the pace with suspension problems, but was now in 3rd. While Carlos Sainz was even slower, yet still moved to 4th, sadly thanks only to the demise of his teammates.
Just very simple. It was very rutted after this morning, and the car bounced out the ruts and got on the soft mud at the side and then understeered off down a hole and burst the radiator.
It's a shame because you've been relaxed all week. If that hadn't happened, how confident were you were going to go on and win this event?
Yeah, it was going well. We had a good lead. Yeah, it wasn't a problem. It was just unfortunate.
It's been a tough day. Colin Mcrae's gone home early. Richard Burns.
Subaru's Petter Solberg and Juha Kankkunen both seem to enjoy Margam. Kankkunen 3rd quickest and Solberg 4th, although the young Norwegian driver wondered whether he'd chosen too soft a tyre compound. Solberg also commented that he thinks tomorrow's run through Margam will be very rough. Outside the top 10, Alistair McRae might have survived the oil leak, but had to tackle Margam with a broken sump guard. To say the Rally of Great Britain's not been kind to Alistair must be one of the week's biggest understatements.
Apologies there for the loss of sound, but there was a big change at the top. McRae's demise playing into the hands of Richard Burns. Rally leader now for the first time, but Grönholm still holds most of the cards as championship leader, needing only to finish, remember, in the top 5 to land the title. There is, remember this also, the little matter of the second super special of the rally. It's underway right now. You may be able to hear the commentary behind us, though it won't affect the order on the road tomorrow. Peter Slater, meanwhile, was at the final service at Swansea.
It's been a tough day. Colin Mcrae's gone home early. Richard Burns has chased Marcus Grönholm. Now he leads before tonight's super special. It won't matter unless Grönholm slows or goes out tomorrow, but don't think the result is cut and dried. So it's not all over, Richard, is it?
No, it's not all over. There was a chance yesterday morning that it would be all over, but today, well, I've just driven as fast as the conditions have let me, and we've had some good times.
Does it make any difference at all to you that Colin is no longer in the event?
Well, it does, because it puts us back in the position that we needed to be in. I mean, before I could go along, you know, if I was in 2nd place or 3rd place, didn't make any difference. But now we're in the lead, then move the pressure back to Marcus, really.
Marcus, has anything changed for you today?
Not really. Okay. It was a good thing when Colin was leading, but now he's out of the race, and Burns have the place what he needs now to win. So we have to finish the rally now.
Does it make any difference to you being first on the road? Does that matter in this event?
Not really, no. I actually prefer to be first car, because then you don't have the distraction of any other marks, and I think it's actually better being first car, because the more cars that go through, the more mud sort of comes up from the surface. So I'm happier being first car.
Well, we said all along it's for Marcus to lose, but is there now pressure on him? It's the final day. Surely it's going to be going through his head. I could be world champion by the end of the day.
Of course, he's only got 4 more stages before he can be world champion, but you know, he's been under a lot of pressure for a long time, and he's kept his head, and he's been driving very, very well. And even here on this rally, when he didn't need to do particularly good times, he's been strong. So you have to say he's done a fantastic job.
I've asked you this before, Marcus, but this time tomorrow you could be world champion. Are you thinking about it yet?
No, not yet. Tomorrow, so we see.
I'm pleased to say that we've got further living proof that Colin and his co-driver Nicky Grist are in one piece, because they're here. Good evening. Aches and pains, Colin, yet?
Not at the moment.
No, I suppose in the context of recent events, that was quite a minor shunt, wasn't it, really?
Well, okay, it was, the worst thing is we're out of the rally, that's a big problem. It was going to be what would have been a good result, finish off not such a great season.
Did you feel that you had it in the bag? I know you can never take anything for granted, but it was looking pretty tidy, wasn't it?
Yeah, maybe that was part of the problem. We just maybe relaxed a bit too much, and you know, this rally is not forgiving at all, and if you relax just a bit too much, then that sort of thing can happen.
How are you, Nicky?
No, fine, yes, just obviously upset. Really wanted to win my home Rally of Britain, especially based in Cardiff, but okay, it wasn't to be.
You've been out of luck, the two of you, haven't you? And especially Colin, the last 3 years. That's 3 retirements in a row.
I just wish we had some of Tommy Mackinnon's luck.
Well, what about Tony Gardemeister with his bonnet suddenly flapping up in front of his window? But I mean, it's highly frustrating, isn't it, Nicky? I mean, you were there.
Yeah, of course. We've gone through a lot of ups and downs over the last 3 years. I mean, there's so much more effort goes into a championship challenge outside of just sitting in the car and driving the stages. I mean, there's all the testing, development work that we've had to go through, and wrecking, of course. But okay, the year is over. We can't win a championship. We can't win the rally. We look at 2001.
Harry, you can sympathise with these two, can't you? I mean, you grimaced when you watched it as well, the in-car footage.
No, of course, because, I mean, their year has been really quite unfortunate in many ways, and they would have deserved to win. But, as we know, life very rarely goes according to script, and I'm sure there's nothing in life that you wouldn't learn something about, and as a human beings, we learn always something, particularly from setbacks, not from winning.
But, Colin, you were making Richard sweat, weren't you? Yeah, you're watching the in-car now. How was it? Here we go, take us through it.
That's the first time I've seen it.
Wasn't pretty or particularly comfortable, probably, was it?
Very straightforward. It was just the problem was the corner was rutted from the passage of the cars the first time round, and the sump guard hit the ground, the car bounced out the ruts, and there was a hole on the outside.
What about the two then? The title with Marcus and Richard. Where's your money at the moment? You'd like to be in Marcus's shoes, wouldn't you, really?
Well, I mean, you can see what happens in this rally. It's so easy to make a mistake like that. But at the moment, you know, Marcus is holding the cards, and if you were going to put a bet on, you would have to bet on Marcus.
Briefly, Nicky, the same for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Marcus has got the best hand at the moment, and I think he's just got to cruise round for the victory.
Thank you very much indeed, all of you. Harry, money on Marcus or Richard?
It's normally Marcus, but we will see tomorrow night.
Okay, well, thank you all very much indeed for coming in. Steve Ryder will be back tomorrow, and remember, there'll be a new name on the championship trophy. And remember also, you can follow the whole of the final and possibly decisive stage of this event live on Sunday Grandstand from 1:30. Full review of the whole event on BBC Two from 6:45. Hope you can join us then. Good night.